Hi everyone, my name is Andrey. I'm a researcher at the University of Manchester, and here is my paper that has been recently published in the top journal in electrical engineering, IEEE Transactions on Smart Grid. This is my second paper that I published in top IEEE journals, and I believe this one was the most challenging one, at least in terms of the time and effort invested. In total, it took me more than 1 year to get this paper published, including several revisions, dozens of meetings with my co-authors, and so on. I prepared this visualization of the timeline for my publishing process. I'm going to discuss it in detail a little bit later, but my point is that it can be very challenging to get high-quality publications in top-tier IEEE journals. And in this video, I want to discuss these challenges, share my experience with you, and give a little bit of advice on improving the quality of the manuscripts. Why am I making this video? Well, there seems to be a lack of material on this topic. There exist some videos and webinars about publishing in IEEE journals, but personally I find them a bit strange and boring. Usually in such webinars, very senior academics discuss that the papers should have good quality, they should have introduction, clear contributions. Then they discuss the need for peer review process, page limits, etc. And I think that this general advice is not very useful for students and young researchers. I will put in the description links to some of such webinars. Some webinars are called Tips and Best Practices for Publishing in IEEE Journals. But as I said, I believe that they are not really useful for young researchers. And in my case, when I was a PhD student, I was literally lost in the IEEE journals and magazines. When I was a student, I was selecting IEEE journals kind of blindly, without a clue. And the only clue I had was advice from my professor, but I was not aware of the challenges of publishing in the top IEEE journals, and I think it can be very confusing for students and young researchers. Instead, I want to make a video about general aspects of publication in top IEEE journals based on my personal experience, and then share some tips and advice about improving the quality of your manuscripts. Here are the topics that we are going to discuss today. First, I will discuss how to understand the quality of an IEEE journal and how to select the top-tier journals among all IEEE magazines. Then we will address the question of why to publish in the top IEEE journals. Why do we need this? Why can't we just publish in open access journals and some average quality, less demanding journals? And finally, I will share some other thoughts on the timing of publication, publishing fee, and some other publishing issues. Then I will make a second dedicated video to specifically focus on my tips for improving the quality of your manuscripts to maximize their chances of being accepted in top IEEE journals. Before moving forward, let me say that, of course, not all scientists should publish in IEEE journals. The fields covered by IEEE journals can be found on this website, which is called Browse IEEE Journals and Magazines. And we can see that the main topics are engineering, electronics, energy, computing, etc. So if you study these topics or work in these fields, publishing IEEE papers might be beneficial for your career, and this video might be useful for you. All right, now let's move to the first topic of how to understand the quality of an IEEE journal. Let me say that IEEE, Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineers, is just a brand. And within this brand, there are many journals, magazines, and conferences of different caliber. And for example, there are some conferences dedicated to students. They are made specifically for students, which means that young researchers can rather easily publish any work in these conferences, unless, of course, this work is complete nonsense and the quality is unacceptable. And on the other hand, there are top-tier, very influential journals where the best teams in the world publish their best ideas. And these are the journals that I will focus on in today's video. So let's use this link again, Browse IEEE Journals and Magazines. And if we open this website, we can see that IEEE has more than 400 journals and magazines in total. And we can see many different topics covered by these journals. So how to understand which of these journals have good quality and which journals we can name the top tier journals. Well, there are many things to check here, which can be a little bit confusing, but let's start with the simplest thing, which is called the impact factor. In IEEE journals, the impact factor means how many times average paper gets cited in 2 years. And we can say that journals with the impact factor of more than 4 or 5 are rather significant, rather influential journals. For example, in my field, one of the most influential journal, IEEE Transactions on Power Systems, has impact factor more than 6, and the journal where I published my recent paper, IEEE Transactions on Smart Grid, has impact factor of more than 9, which means that on average, in 2 years, your paper will be cited more or less 9 times. And this indicates that the journal is rather good, it is popular, people are reading this journal and then they are citing the papers. So this is the very basic metric that you can use to understand the level of a journal. But I would say that even though impact factor is important, it is not the only important metric that you should use to analyze the quality of the journal. There is another very important metric, and sometimes it is tricky to find it, which is called the acceptance rate. Acceptance rate is basically the ratio between the number of accepted papers, accepted manuscripts, and the total number of all submissions. And some journals publish these statistics, but other journals kind of try to hide it. And I just want to show you an example for, again, the top tier IEEE journal, Transactions on Power Systems. I found statistics from recent presentation, recent slides made by the editor, and we can see that in 2020, the acceptance rate in this journal was 22.5%. So you can imagine how tough and rigorous the review process is in this journal if 80% of all submissions get rejected and only 20% of the best papers get accepted. If we combine this metric, low acceptance rate, with high impact factor, we get the best journals in the field because they have many influential papers published there, plus the review process is tough and rigorous. So these are the two metrics that I recommend you to look for. But again, that's not the end of the story. Then you might want to know the history of this journal, and also you need to check the people who publish there. And you should probably check your co-authors and your professors. For example, their Google Scholar profiles, and you can see in what IEEE journals they publish their work. Let me just quickly show you an example. This is my co-author, Professor Pierluigi Mancarella. He is very famous professor in the field of power systems. And if we rank his best, most influential, most cited papers, we can see what are the IEEE journals where he published, and we can see IEEE Transactions on Power Systems, IEEE Systems Journal, and IEEE Transactions on Sustainable Energy. So if you know some eminent people in the field and you see where they publish their best works, probably that is the top tier IEEE journal, and we can say that this is the trusted IEEE journal. All right, so we discussed how to analyze the quality of IEEE journals. Now let's move on to the next question of why to publish in top IEEE journals. Why should we publish specifically in the top tier journals, not in average quality journals? And the answer here is that you must publish in such journals to further advance your academic career. And it will be very difficult to advance your career without such publications. The truth is that most academics in the field, they consider these top IEEE journals as the gold standard of publication. And then they use this gold standard to evaluate other academics, their teams, their works, grant applications, and so on. So as I said, it will be very hard to advance your career without good papers in these top IEEE journals. And here I have some examples from my experience. I want to tell you a story that I had discussions here at the University of Manchester, and I was told that University of Manchester will not consider people for tenure track positions. They will not consider people without at least 2 publications in IEEE journals. So we can say that good universities in the UK, they check the number of publications in top IEEE journals when recruiting people. And it will be really hard to get good tenure track position, let's say associate professor or professor in the UK, without these publications. And another example that I have for you is that when I participated in some scientific discussions with engineers, with academics here, I saw that once they get some really strong, really good ideas, the first thing they discuss is how to get an IEEE journal publication out of it. So they never discuss how to get a conference paper or something else, and they just keep their best ideas for these IEEE journals. And this is why these journals become so important for academics in these fields. Summing up, if you would like to stay in academia, let's say after your PhD, it is very beneficial to get at least a few IEEE journal publications. And in my case, I managed to get one IEEE journal paper based on my thesis, and of course this was a big advantage, a big plus to my CV, and probably this helped me to get this postdoctoral position at the University of Manchester. However, there is a related question of who should not publish in the top tier IEEE journals. And I believe that this would be an advice for people who plan to leave academia, go for industry after, say, completing their PhD or postdoctoral position. And my points here are that industry, companies usually do not care about your IEEE journal papers. And in this case, why should you invest much time, let's say 1 year or more, in producing a single manuscript that will be not helpful for your future career? And my second point is that publishing in top IEEE journals is not only lengthy and challenging, there is also a high chance of being rejected, which is very tricky and risky for PhD students. I know some people, I know some stories where students submitted their research to IEEE journals, and then they waited for it and they needed these publications for the PhD thesis defense. But then after 3 or 6 months, they got a rejection, and you can imagine that the entire PhD thesis was put at risk, and they had to ask for extension to publish that paper somewhere else. So again, this is highly challenging, highly risky publication in the top IEEE journals. So why should you go for this option if instead you can just publish your work in some conferences and, let's say, less demanding IEEE journals? So this would be my advice why some people, especially some PhD students, should not consider submitting their work to the top IEEE journals. All right, the next topic I want to discuss with you is the timing of the publication process in the top IEEE journals. And as I said, I spent a lot of time to get my paper published, and I want to show you the timeline of publication process for my case. So this is how I visualized the timing of my publication, and you can see from this timeline that it took me 1 year to produce this good quality manuscript. Of course, this was a little bit slow. I was not working every day on this publication. I had other projects to do, and moreover, I was doing this research and preparing results while writing the paper. So that was an ongoing research, and I didn't have my models and results ready at the beginning. Of course, if you have your results ready and ideas formulated, you can write a good quality IEEE paper maybe in half a year. But I think it's pretty much impossible to write a good paper, let's say, in 3 or 4 months. So yeah, we can see that I started writing this paper in October 2021, where I did initial results and draft, and then the submission was in October 2022. All right, so 1 year of hard work. What happens next? Then, after my submission, I waited 2 months, and in December 2022, I got the first email from the editor that the decision was to revise the paper. And then I was revising this paper, I believe, for 3 months. I submitted it again, and I got the second decision in March 2023. And again, the decision was to revise the paper one more time. Some reviewers still had questions and comments about the paper, so I revised the paper, submitted it again, and finally I got the final decision that the paper is accepted in July 2023. So you can see that it took me around 8 or 9 months to go through the review process, and you can sum this up: 1 year of work on the manuscript plus 9 months of review process, which is really a lot of time. Even though this publication is important for my career, I believe that the review process in these top IEEE journals is too lengthy. And what I want to say with this is that going for such an important publication should be an important, well-reasoned decision. And you should not rush to just submit this paper for your thesis in such journals, because, as I said, if you are not well prepared, there is a chance that your paper gets rejected after 6 months and your PhD thesis can be in trouble. Another thing that I want to discuss about the IEEE publishing process is the problem of publishing fees. Theoretically, you can publish your work for free in top IEEE journals, of course not as open access, but IEEE will try to collect money using other methods. And for example, they will collect money using the page access fees. The point is that your initial submission must be below 10 pages. But then you will have several rounds of review, and after each round you will be adding new material to your manuscript, and I believe that you will add at least few extra pages to this work. But the trick is that everything above 10 pages will be charged from you or your institution. And I even found these official rules on the IEEE website. Let me put this here. It is said that note that any paper in excess of 10 pages will be subject to mandatory overlength page charges. And then in the emails that I got from IEEE, it was said overlength page charges are mandatory and are not negotiable. So they say that you will pay this, you must pay these charges if you want to get your accepted paper published. In my case, I had really massive revisions for my manuscript. The original submission was 10 pages, then after the first review it became 16 pages, and the final version of the manuscript has 18 pages. So I have to pay for 8 extra pages. And when my manuscript was accepted, I got an email, I got an invoice to pay $1,500. So I can even show you this invoice that I got. You can see this is Copyright Clearance Center for IEEE, and it is said that I should pay $1,500 for extra pages, which I believe is really a lot. In my case, my manager had money in his project, in the department's budget, so he could easily pay for this extra pages fee. But how should people, researchers from small teams, small institutes pay for that? And this is why I don't like this approach, because it is very similar to the open access problems. And there are many problems with open access, but at least it leads to inequality issues in the research, where people without huge budgets cannot really pay for their papers. All right, so some final thoughts on the publishing problems in IEEE journals. I want to say that even though there are really good top-tier IEEE journals, still the publication process is not perfect. As I said, these top-tier journal publications are very important for many academics in engineering, and these journals get attacked by thousands of submissions every year. Of course, there are different qualities of these manuscripts submitted, but what I want to say is that many, even good academics, they specifically target these IEEE journals, and they manage to publish a lot of papers per year. As you saw, it took me more than 1 year to get one good quality publication in top-tier IEEE journal. But I saw Google Scholar profiles of researchers who managed to publish 3, 5, or even more papers per year, sometimes as the first or second author. Which means that they are really playing these publishing games. They are splitting their ideas into multiple small ideas, make multiple submissions at the same time, invite many co-authors, and try to increase their numbers, their statistics in terms of the top IEEE papers published. And I don't like this game. I don't want to play this game. I am happy with my 2 IEEE transactions publications so far. But the problem is that this is not enough for academia, and if you will be comparing yourself with other academics and engineers in the field, you can find that they manage to publish really a lot of papers in these top-tier IEEE journals, which I think that this is a problem, because what I heard is that this IEEE review system is overloaded. Reviewers in top IEEE journals get overloaded with the number of invitations. and sometimes they don't have time to produce a good review, so they just write a short paragraph saying basically that they don't like this work and it should be rejected. So yeah, this is the aspect that I don't like about publication, that too many people, too many submissions, even in top-tier IEEE journals. All right, that's all about the publication aspects in top-tier IEEE journals that I wanted to cover. We discussed how to analyze the quality of IEEE journals, how to distinguish average quality journals and top-tier journals. Then I shared my vision of the question who and why should publish in these top-tier journals. We discussed some timing issues, etc. I hope you find this information useful, and if you have any specific questions, please let me know. I can address them in the comments. I'm going to record a second video soon where I will focus specifically on the tips and advice for producing high-quality manuscripts for IEEE journals. I want to share my personal experience and advice with examples from this recently accepted paper in IEEE Transactions on Smart Grid. So I hope this will be useful for you, and see you in the next video. Bye.